This is Peace Day, the opening number of the Peace Child musical that launched a charity which for 40 years has empowered young people to take effective action to secure their future.
I'll you be a friend of mine. I'll be the same.
Think back 40 years, or perhaps 100 years. It's hard to remember how passive and invisible children were in the political and economic sphere. In families, they were like ornaments to be observed, admired even, but not engaged with. In schools, they were expected to do as they were told. Out of school, they were driven down coal mines. Pushed up chimneys and sent off to fight and die in wars for us. Compare that with the childhoods of the present. Young people have rights. A youth envoy at the United Nations and a special International Youth Day. Young people are now a force in the world of politics and in matters of international peace and justice. We have young poets speaking at presidential inaugurations. There are teenage business millionaires. And locally, commercially, and internationally, youth advisory boards now take an active part in decision making. Youth is now a recognised sector of society with their voice heard and respected at every level. Peace Child, with its mission to empower young people to fulfil their potential, has been a part of that change. But where did it come from?
The show was born in England in 1981 as a celebration of peace for United Nations Week. It tells the story of Soviet and American children who meet and initially find common ground through their fear of nuclear war.
I don't want to die. Neither do I. I want to live. I want to grow up and lead a full life.
They become friends and get on television, and eventually, after many adventures, are the catalysts that bring about peace between their two nations.
I want to live. I want to live.
A year later, the play premiered in North America at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And finally, in the summer of 1985, the play was performed in the Soviet Union.
Я жить хочу, хочу я жить.
Peace Child was something of a hit in the USSR. The sight of Soviet and American children singing Peace Child songs together, now newly translated into Russian, proved irresistible to Soviet audiences. The cast even got on the primetime nightly news with the Soviet equivalent of Dan Rather. In 1986, American children were there again, receiving the same enthusiastic, warm receptions everywhere they went. But getting Soviet children to come to the United States, that was much harder. It had never happened before.
Mr. President.
The appeal to leaders to introduce large systems of youth exchange has always been part of a Peace Child play.
We want you to begin a system in our schools so that all children can have the chance to learn to love each other, as we have done.
And in 1986, the Soviet authorities said yes to Peace Child. 10 Soviet and 12 American children toured a dozen North American cities in the first ever joint Soviet-American musical theater production. The tour included a spectacular performance at the United Nations on the International Day of Peace.
The Peace Child musical brought the first Soviet kids and rock stars to the US on a youth cultural exchange that changed the temperature of US-Soviet relations and helped pave the way for the end of the Cold War.
World, look at the way we are.
Peace Child then turned its attention to the hot war humanity was waging against the environment. A war that humanity shows every sign of winning. Having helped the UN engage young people in the Rio Earth Summit, it then created a best-selling book summarising its outcomes called Rescue Mission Planet Earth. The global success of Rescue Mission made Peace Child a world leader in the brand new field of education for sustainable behaviours. In 1999, Peace Child launched a series of World Youth Congresses to enable young people to establish their own priorities for the 21st century. Each Congress came up with its list of priorities. The first coined the term Youth-Led Development. Peace Child's Congress series successfully promoted that concept and made it part of mainstream international development thinking. The Congress also led to Peace Child's current focus, youth, job and enterprise creation. The UN's Sustainable Development Goal 8 promises full employment for all women and men by 2030. Young people are by far the largest sector of the unemployed. In least developed countries, this leads to mental stress, oppression, exploitation and extreme poverty, especially for young women. Peace Child's Work the Change and Be the Change Academy programs empower young people to rise to the challenge of finding or creating jobs for themselves in new and innovative ways. In the years to come, Peace Child will continue to empower young people to support and work closely with the United Nations, to create sustainable green jobs and enterprises, and to rise to their generational challenge of halting and reversing climate change. For like today's youth, our current CEO and trustees are determined never to allow any young people to suffer being second-class citizens in waiting as the youth of earlier centuries did. Our mission remains what it always was: to empower every young person to fulfill their potential.
Be a friend.